Thank you, Madam Chair, and of course I want to say to the chairwoman who's retiring. Thank you. I don't see her here, but I want to say thank you for her service, and she will be sorely missed. Pleased to be focusing today on traumatic brain injury. A lot of personal friends have suffered from TBIs. They've served our country in the armed forces. They've served our country in law enforcement, and they live with these injuries for years. 5 million Americans live with a TBI. In the military, the estimate is that 30% of our service members experience some type of brain injury, and it's similar in law enforcement. We think that a third of veterans have PTSD, a fifth of police officers have PTSD, and they're definitely linked to TBI and the symptoms that they face every day. It's a lifetime of issues, and so I think we should be supporting and funding more research for those who are injured, and I echo Mr. Strozik's remarks about reauthorizing programs to support that research. We also have to do our best to make sure that that information just doesn't stay in an agency in Washington, D.C., but that best practices filter down to all practitioners. Mr. Strozik, you're a first responder. What do you see as the biggest gaps in identifying TBIs early on?
Well, Congressman, thank you. If we speak in terms of EMS providers or we speak in terms of public safety, law enforcement, or fire service, it may be identification and acknowledgement that something's happened. So be it an accident where there's been an airbag deployment, there's been a fall, there's been something that would trigger a reason to do an evaluation needs to be established. The military has done a marvelous job, and unfortunately has had to, recognizing and identifying traumatic brain injury. I refer back to a comment I made earlier in our presentation that motorsports and youth sports have become extremely focused on identifying initial signs of TBI and doing secondary and tertiary follow-up on this. I would think, and I would hope, and I would look forward to physician groups, NAMSP, United States Fire Administration, other groups that are involved in this, and also neurological groups, that we establish standards that says if A, B, C, or D has occurred, then that person must receive a screening, an initial screening and a backup screening.
Yeah, and you know, I don't need to tell anybody this, but the reason it's difficult too is because if you don't have a baseline to operate off of, so in the military, I know that we started doing baselines a long time ago. I don't know if that's the case in law enforcement. Dr. Pike, another one of the worst diseases we see in the TBI space is CTEs. People with CTEs are also 2 to 4 times more likely to get dementia. Can you share your opinion on the barriers to diagnosing these difficult diseases in the brain?
Thank you. The relationship between TBI and CTE is a growing area of research, certainly, and like Alzheimer's, CTE is characterized by tangles of an abnormal form of the protein tau in the brain. And evidence, as you just mentioned, indicates that even a mild TBI increases the risk of developing certain forms of dementia. In fact, recent results have shown a 70% increase of dementia risk from any form of TBI. But the fact is, more research is needed. We need to understand CTE diagnosis and prevention, and another way of early identification within that space. We also need to think about the investments within the workforce and training within the workforce for the earliest signs and symptoms of TBI and the connection to CTE. And that's exactly why we're requesting to reauthorize NAPA and the Alzheimer's Accountability Act.
Okay, I appreciate it. I want to end with a conversation about breast cancer. It's deeply personal to me. I lost my mom to breast cancer, and early detection can be life or death. Dr. Annunziata, what role do you see for diagnostic innovation in solving this problem?
Yes, we certainly need more innovation in the diagnostic sense. The American Cancer Society recommends traditional screening for women at risk of breast cancer, and those are based on data that we've collected over the years. But American Cancer Society does also support that any test recommended by a doctor or in a study recommended for women with, for example, with dense breasts should be covered at cost sharing. And we're pleased that the FDA finalized a rule last year specifically requiring all mammogram reports to be sent to patients and doctors to include information on dense breast.
Got it. Thank you, and I'm out of time. I yield back.